up with that static image again if people want to watch it back or whatever. But so feel free to continue to do whatever you're doing with your camera and all that kind of good stuff. But thanks everybody for joining in again. Just a chance for us to get together and figure out what we're all doing, or talk about all the things we're all doing at the same time right now and how well it's working and what's not working and stuff like that, and then see other things we can do to support each other and what's happening. So all that preamble to say, since the last time we talked, UNC Charlotte has put together a number of virtual webinars with employers, and we've got a big panel going this week or next week actually, with a group to see how well that works. And then we held a virtual fair using the Simplicity software for our education career fair, and that worked pretty good, here and there, and except for a couple technical issues. And then we're exploring options for what a virtual fair would look like in the fall should we need it. So that's kind of where we are and what we've been up to. And I'll shut up now, and somebody else please talk and say what you've had going on. Oh, first off, though, I'm sorry. Jump back in real quick. Sorry, everyone. You'll see on the side, Travis Wright is new to our group here. He's at Queens. Listen, welcome to the group. Sorry, Rod, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah. Hey, Jay. This is I don't know if you guys can hear me.
Yeah.
Okay, good. This is Roderick Lewis from UNC Chapel Hill. I know, Jay, you and I exchanged some emails a few months ago. Just wanted to first of all, glad to be part of this group. Didn't get a chance to come on last week, but definitely want to try to join in when I can. And just to piggyback on what you talked about with the virtual fairs, so we're a handshake school. But outside of that, we've used Career Eco. And so looking at doing some virtual events with them this fall. So we participated in one, and you may have participated in as well, as the SEC, ACC virtual career fairs, virtual career fair that was just on April 2nd. And
yeah, I'm familiar with that.
Okay,
yeah.
So we use it as a we've been a part of it, but this is the first time we really heavily promoted it. And what I noticed is, we didn't get a lot of students who attended, not the numbers I was thinking. That we really heavily promoted it. So we had like maybe 170 register, and like 70 actually attend, and that ranked 11th out of the 28 schools. And so I was just curious to what other schools were doing in terms of virtual career fairs, and because we're trying to research some. I've got a employee relations intern researching some right now, and just curious what's been used out there, because we want to go all in the fall as well.
I'm familiar with Career Echo as well, or Career Eco as well. And then this was the first time I've used the Simplicity one since they rebuilt it. But I haven't tried any other ones. What are some of the other platforms that you all are familiar with or have used?
I've seen one called Brazen, and there's one called I have to put up the notes my intern sent, but it's Brazen. I think another one called something like Virtual Fairs. But I'll send the list out to the group once she compiles everything. Those are the ones I can only think of off the top of my head. And some other ones were some like Lee Hecht Harrison, but I was never aware of them doing any type of virtual platform, so I had to research that a little more.
Jay, this is Dana from Wake. I was on another call with some other schools, and someone else also mentioned Brazen. If anybody's got any info, I'd love that. But from what that call was, I was told they were extremely expensive.
So we have Brazen. Shockingly, our alumni office, I think, has the access to it. I know that they have tried to use it in the past, but I think they've tried to use it more for like workshops or meetups. It's got like a waiting room, and I don't know. I don't think they've found it extremely effective. I know Nadira would probably have more information if anybody wants to know. but I know that we have access to it at UNC Wilmington. I think they've tried to do different types of events on it. They had even thought about trying to do a Resumania. But I don't know that I've been in like a testing of it, but it doesn't seem like it would be, I would be shocked if people use that for a virtual career fair platform.
David just put a great list in the chat, every one of the ones he's found and that he's working through but doesn't have opinions on yet. But I just copied and pasted that into a notepad for myself too to look at. Thank you, David, for putting those out there.
Yeah,
How many of you are
in the process of communicating with Brazen? I'm hoping to put a career fair together with them in the next month and a half. We used Career Echo in the past. This was about 4 years ago with very mixed results. So I wanted to do something a bit different. Based on the demo, I found the platform to be pretty streamlined, and it had a good interface to it. What I did like is that the questions are customizable, where, what we wanted to do is we wanted to have a virtual career fair where students were required to upload a resume to attend. Since the whole thing is virtual, and Brazen allows you to do that. In addition, it's got a queue platform as opposed to an outright chat room where students each get 5 minutes to work individually with their recruiters. And if the conversation is going well, the recruiter can then extend it 5 minutes or potentially 10 minutes. So I'm in the process of putting it together. I don't have experience yet with how it actually works, but I can say that working with them has been an easy process. It's been flexible. It's when you pay for it, essentially you're signing up for a year contract where if you buy 50 booths and 300 student spots, you have the entire year to utilize all of those slots. But they were pretty creative in other ways that if we wanted to utilize some of those for networking webinars or things along those lines. So, I'll have to get back to you on how this all works out. But so far with the career virtual platforms that I've researched, it was not the cheapest, but it did seem the most streamlined. And it's something that I'm hoping works out well.
I have a question for the room, and you can either throw it in the chat or just pop on the mic and say so. How many of you are planning to actually do virtual fairs for the fall, or is it a backup plan in case things continue?
Yeah, this is a backup plan for me. We're looking to do this within the next month and a half in lieu of our postponed business and information technology career fair. So I wouldn't call this, it's not a replacement. As soon as we're able to allow people on campus, we are still going to have an in-person career fair, but obviously we have no idea when that's going to be.
Right. And okay, so it looks like from the chat, most everyone is kind of backup plan. Roderick, you're the one that is planning to complement your existing in-person fairs. Am I reading that right? Okay.
I can say this is Adam at ECU. We are obviously exploring everything. We're looking into WebEx just because we have the technology already. So we're working with our IT group and going through some trainings to see how that may work. But again, we're just exploring everything like everyone else. And again, being that we have it as a technology and we're not sure what the fall will look like in terms of not just participation, but, revenue and things like that. As you look at your budgets and things like that for the fall, we're trying to minimize as much as possible.
All right.
Yeah, we haven't started. I'll be honest, I haven't started thinking about, I guess I should probably start thinking about it. I know that Nadir and I have had a conversation about potentially looking at the different types of platforms, but as of this point, we have not actually started thinking about planning anything virtual. I mean, we're still moving forward with everything the same until I guess we have a better outlook, but we're definitely keeping in mind different ideas. So that list that David sent is definitely helpful.
Yeah. And that's sort of where we are too, not knowing when or if we'll be back on campus. And, UNC Charlotte, all of our summer school classes are now online, and all of our summer orientation program is going to be virtual in some way. So we're not even sure when they'll let us back on campus. They're not going to use our site as a hospital temporary space anymore. They announced that last week after having talked about it for a while. But so we're hoping that's good news. But the other thing we're hearing from our employer partners is, well, that's great if you guys are back in there, but my company may not let me travel through the fall again too. So we may have to have an alternative option, kind of like what Roderick is mentioning. So that's why we're trying to vet as much of it as we can, because even though we're open, they may not be open to travel. And I've had a few companies say that they've shut down recruiting not only for their possible summer interns and all that stuff, but through the fall, like they will not be doing any recruiting at all, which I find a bit staggering. But a lot of those are in the automotive manufacturing area and stuff like that. So none of those places are open right now, which is scary. But what all are you hearing in terms of, have you heard anything more in terms of trends, or are you seeing one industry over another that seems to be pushing forward or anything like that?
I mean, I would imagine most of you probably, like myself, got the program update from Enterprise last week about their internship program. So I know that's always been a big one for us. But last time I spoke to like PPD, they were still considering keeping their options open. The same with NetApp. I know that some of the staffing firms like Alcu that I've talked to, they're still moving forward with everything the same. Right now, a local company in Wilmington Castle Branch, they're still doing hiring. So I think it's really just hit or miss. And I think probably the deeper we get into it, the more that we're going to be hearing from people. But right now, that most of the businesses here in Wilmington haven't made huge changes, but some of the bigger corporations I've noticed are the ones that are that have national programs might be making those just decisions.
Jay, this is Dana. Can I pose another question?
Certainly, this is wide open.
Okay, knowing what we're dealing with right now, I don't know what you all do whenever graduation comes along. When students graduate, how long do they get to use your career office and or your ER services? And with what's going on, is there any thought about adjustments, to that? How are you all? Is anybody sort of contemplating that? I'm sure that we are. It's like, what do we do? We really need to get into fall mode with what's happening with them. But if we've still got graduates who are seeking, how are we going to meet their need as well? So would love some ideas of what everybody's doing.
Yeah,
David?
UNC Wilmington. Oh, sorry, Jay. I was going to say we support alumni till like the dawn of time. I mean, forever and ever. So our alumni have full access to creating alumni handshake pages coming in. I mean, they can attend all the same programming that we pretty much have for students.
UNC Asheville, David said, is the same as Wilmington. UNC Charlotte is the same. It's in perpetuity. Elon doesn't have a cutoff or charge for alumni. Beth weighed in. And Meredith, from Jay Matthews from Meredith, said it's lifetime as well. Anybody else want to jump in? ECU, no cutoff. WCU, same. So what we don't know yet, Dana, is how much more of a load that's going to be than it's been in recent years. Experience tells me it'll be a lot more, because the last few years it's been, jobs are aplenty, and now they may not be. So my experience tells me that there'll be more demand from our alums, and so our coaching staff is starting to build that into capacity as they're thinking about for next year what that looks like. And right now that sort of lays in one person's court, but that may get spread around to 3 or 4 people just to be able to manage it more. But as far as employer services and things like that, I mean, any alum can participate in OCR, job postings, come to fairs, networking events, whatever. We've always had that. The one thing that's coming out of this that we have had good feedback on is having live links up of career meetups or information sessions as they're happening. And so something we're going to do going forward is, if the employer will allow us, is not only for the people that are there, but like an hour beforehand, we'll put out a big blast that says, hey, can't join us in person tonight, join us on the live link and watch in. So we'll have kind of dual events.
Yeah, we're actually hosting a virtual career week next week. So I'm in the process of getting employers to sign up for our time slots throughout the week to do different presentations that we're going to record. We're hoping we're going to share them to our website. We're hoping that students will join them. If they don't, kind of like you, Jay, we'll record it, make it a little bit more of a Q&A at the end. Emily and I have a one-on-one after this, but her and I, she doesn't know yet, but her and I are going to be moderating them. So yeah, we'll talk about it at 3. But so we're doing that, and then we're holding a virtual resume and kind of bring it all together on Wednesday. So we've got topics like virtual interviewing, leverage LinkedIn and your personal brand, job searching tips, things of that nature that we're going to be doing throughout the week.
Very cool.
We don't know how many students will come.
Yeah.
I know that we've been doing, just so you guys, I don't know what it's like for everybody, but the career counselors have been doing virtual drop-in. We've still been having our like express hours every day, 2 to 4 p.m. And I think in the 3 weeks that we've been doing them, they've had 2 students show up total, like total. So.
Ian, if I can get you to weigh in on the comment you made just a couple of minutes ago about the employer career fair and the numbers breakdown of who would prefer virtual versus face-to-face, that's very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So on March 25th, that's when we host our Business and Information Technology Career Fair, which was slated to be a pretty good event until everything went sideways. But to help me decide what I was going to do next, I polled all of the registered employers, and it really was an even mix. 33% of them were not hiring at all. 33% would entertain a virtual career fair, and 33% would prefer to wait until later in the summer or whenever they're able to do something face-to-face. So I take some of that, not with a grain of salt, but, things change so rapidly that employers that, would be interested in a virtual career fair that expressed that early last week, they may potentially now be on a hiring freeze and as things are changing, but it's helping me decide how to proceed best moving forward. And I'm just going to hope for the best. I'm going all in on Brazen, and I don't know how many employers are going to register for it. And like any event, I don't know how many students are going to register for it, but I'm going to do everything in my power to try and make it a good event. But I have also spoken to a handful of my employers that have participated in virtual career fairs, and the majority of them, they do prefer face-to-face. It's not their ideal method of recruiting, and
Sure.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
No, I agree. I mean, I think that's what everyone prefers. It's just what the reality might be. We don't know. So I think it'd be better to be prepared.
True.
Yeah. If I can ask real quick, just on another note, especially for you who still supervise people too, as part of your position and things, what's that dynamic been like over the last 5 weeks? What are your stress points with it? Or has it been better because you don't have to see people all the time? I don't know.
I would say that for me, this is Adam at ECU. It's the support staff, our career recruiting program specialist, being that's hourly, clocking in, clocking out, staying on top of that. It's just different than our EHRA where you're, salary and things like that. So supervising 2 of those, different positions, one that's hourly, one that's an annual salary is just, it's a challenge, but I try to have my one-on-ones, make sure I'm supporting them. The reality is that for the most part, people are just different circumstances at home, and working from home has never been ideal. So I would say it's just kind of supporting them and making sure they've got that outlet. Work is important for some of those individuals to just step out, have some questions, talk. And really that's where I think the biggest challenge has been.
Rod, you made a couple of good points in the chat there. If you want to pop in and talk about that, be curious to hear you tell more.
Yeah, so we meet, we do 30-minute meetings every day. And when we were at the office, we only had 1 hour weekly meetings, and we would typically try to do like these 15-minute, early week huddles and early in the morning, but we gotten away from that. So really the only time we really just consistently got together in the office was about 1 hour, and that's due to our staffing needs. So we have 2 open vacancies on my team, and so we were trying to just minimize so much meeting time. But now since we are remote and we've just started just having these 30-minute check-ins every day, they've just been very eye-opening. So we have themes for each day. So like today, for example, is Leadership Monday, and we'll share some leadership tips and just talk about what leadership means to each of us individually. Tuesday is Tell the Truth Tuesdays, and so we'll just kind of talk about some things that maybe we don't want to hear, but we'll just tell the truth. And so that's just kind of brought forth some fun quotes and camaraderie amongst us. And then Wednesday, we call that Wisdom Wednesdays, and so somebody will share some wisdom that they got from their community or their network or what have you. And then same thing on Thursday. So each day just kind of has a little theme. And I say all that to say it just brought us closer together in terms of me learning more about them, what they like, what they don't like, what keeps them engaged, and them also learning more about me. What are we doing in our personal lives? And I've just seen the productivity and just the eagerness of what we do. It just seems like there's just a difference. There's a different switch on because all of us now, we know what we have to do to support our students and our stakeholders. And I just think it makes it has made a difference. So I'm looking forward to see how that carries over when we eventually do go back to the office, because now I feel like we just know each other on a different level now.
Thank you. That's very interesting to hear. I think all of us that are in that supervisor role, we're at that point where it's time to do evaluations too. And I'm so looking forward to doing this virtually because there's nothing more personal than that. But it's the life we live in, so they know that. Danny, y'all do a daily check-in?
We do. We actually, our whole team, and we pose that as to, okay, is it too much? And me being old school and having a lot of meetings on my calendar was actually thinking, okay, maybe we could not do it every day. But everybody voted. They said they thought it was a good check-in. It just kept us accountable, task-oriented, uplifting, because if somebody was feeling down or feeling frustrated, we could use that to start the day off and kind of talk through processes and issues. So we've kept it a standing meeting. But we have also blocked off some time because we were getting overscheduled with meetings. I'm sure most of you all are seeing that too. So it was a lot of overscheduling with meetings and not enough admin time. So we did block off quite a bit of admin time 3 days a week. So no meetings could get scheduled and folks could get their job done.
We still have just our weekly team meeting. We have a team meeting Tuesday, and we've kept that. But then we actually started last week doing like a virtual team. I guess I don't want to call it a happy hour, but like a meetup on Thursday afternoons at like 4:15. And that's just like a non-work related conversation that we can kind of all get together, just chat about how our weeks are going, talk about things outside. Well, actually talk about things outside of how our weeks are going work-wise, but more what else have we been doing? Like Emily's doing a home renovation. I've been doing puzzles and read. So kind of that like catch-up thing.
Yeah, I think we called it a water cooler.
Yeah, that's what Patrick called them is water coolers, and they're just randomly placed throughout the week for 30 minutes, and whoever's free can pop in. And the one rule is we don't talk about work. Because that's talk about something else. And then because there's, like Dana mentioned, there's plenty of other times where we're talking about work. And I found a neat article. I'll have to go back and see if I can dig it up real quick. I'll put it in the chat. But that was all about like the early joke and meme was like, this is the introvert's dream. It's actually the introvert's nightmare because it's more meetings than ever and all that kind of stuff. And I shared that with the leadership team because we're kind of half and half in terms of our energy preferences. And it was just neat to hear them go like, oh, I hadn't thought about that. But I was like, yeah, it's like 6 meetings a day. It's like, that's a lot. Like that's enough. So that's what I've been into. So I don't know if any of you have seen anything like that or experienced that as well, but it's good to hear that you're doing routine things. I see bi-weekly meetings and weekly meetings that other people are popping up too.
Jay, this is Lori. I just wanted to reiterate what Dana said, but add a new twist. We have a pretty new team member on our group. And while he started in October, we all know that our jobs are very cyclical. It takes you a whole year to kind of get the groove of the flow of employee relations. And I mean, he started struggling pretty early because he was not in a position to turn around and ask a question. And you're talking about handshake, and you're talking about how every employer's got a nuance. Everything is different, depending on who it is, what industry. And so those meetings have been really important for Jason to be able to, I think, continue his growth in the organization, and us not to get in a situation where he's made some mistakes just because we weren't there, but it hasn't been anything that's been too detrimental. So I think that's another reason it's real important that we keep meeting every day.
Excellent point. I don't know about y'all, we've seen a lot more or a lot less influx of postings and everything that usually come in our office. Now, it usually takes a downturn this time of year anyway, because we're at the end of things, but there's always that flood right before graduation of new stuff, and it hasn't really come in this year. Like I'm pulling together numbers on the specifics, but it's down fairly significantly.
What about student actually logins? I know we proposed that question on the last call, and we're all kind of seeing flat. Has anybody seen an uptick?
Ours has started to come back up in the last week with appointments and logins through the system and things, but not what it normally is and not what it was before we went to break. Now, a lot of our students are, even this many weeks into it, are still having trouble adjusting to the online class environment, and part of that is some of their faculty have told them, here's a bunch of sheets, turn all that in, I'm not doing online classes. And so they've been left to kind of figure it out the rest of the semester, and so there's a lot of stress around that.
Jay, just to chime in from Elon, we recently, I guess it was last Tuesday or Wednesday, we emailed all of our contacts in our Simplicity system that have active jobs. And we did that for two reasons. One, to check in and just, of course, remind them that we hope they're doing well and thanks for supporting our students. And also ask if the job that is active is legitimately still active, great. We will continue to promote. But if anything has changed, please let us know and we'll close the job, or you can go in there and close it yourself. So that's been a nice way for us to touch base with actively hiring employers, because we know that they have a job in our system. So we sent about 250 emails last week. And as we're hearing back, we're just logging that on a spreadsheet so that when our graduating students are feeling anxious about who's still hiring, we have a quick go-to to refer them to Simplicity and say, here are the following companies that have active jobs, consider them.
That's fantastic, Beth. That's a great idea. Anybody else do anything like that?
We are doing a weekly highlight of positions that are active. But I like that idea, Beth. I'm going to talk to him. We may be doing that because I think it's a good way to make sure also, like we use Handshake, but just to make sure it's accurate and clean so that what the students are seeing is actually what the employers are hiring for. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's really why we did it, is because we don't want to keep sending our job seekers to our Simplicity site if it's not up to date with the changes per company. So that was a very directed email from that respect.
Excellent idea.
This is David from UNC Asheville. I have been doing something similar to what Casey is doing, and sending out a weekly kind of cool jobs email. And I'm only sending things that are new in Handshake. So I guess fortunately or unfortunately, I'm not sure, but we definitely are still getting postings and still getting things coming in, both locally and nationwide. So, I mean, it's the volume is down obviously, but I've actually been kind of encouraged by what we've been seeing, and it like I said, it's definitely not the volume that we used to have, but anything that's been within the week, I try to post that, and I so far, knock on wood anyway, I haven't had any concerns in filling that email.
Our coaches do that email as well, based on the career communities they're aligned with, and so they've all been pulling, the most recent stuff. And then if we've been emailed by a company about, hey, we've still got this thing, we're not really posting it, but have people communicate with us, we've been putting it on that as well. So I'm glad to hear we're all doing that. Something similar though. That's fantastic. Jane, you say you do that to faculty. What's the response like on that?
Can y'all hear me? Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, you're fine.
Hey everybody. Yeah, so that's not actually something new that I've started. I have a pretty active listserv I keep with faculty who do coordinate internships on our campus, and then a sprinkling of other, department heads and other partners. And we've seen a really nice response. They have been taking that information. So I typically will pull a list of active internships from Handshake, and I'll attach that, and then also send out any virtual employer events we've been doing. And they've been great partners in forwarding that out to students. So we've seen a nice uptick in that communication, which has been nice.
That's great. That's fantastic. We were very fortunate because we flooded out messages to our internship site coordinators and our faculty that do those, along with our co-op faculty, to send out to the different sites to just let students know, like, here's how you can communicate with us. Here's also some recommendations we have for our students, also for the employers. And we sent out 2 rounds of that and got a lot of really good feedback from both sides. Just knowing they're like, okay, good. It's good to know I can do that or what to do. We recommended for our interns out there and to their internship sites, if their internship needed to work remotely, but they didn't really know what that was supposed to look like, we gave them 3 options, and one was, could they do support work that would support the work they were going to do remotely, that would still give them a bank of experience to talk about at the end of it and would also provide some value to the employer? Could they work on a long-term research project that nobody ever could get around to, and maybe work on it as a cohort if you've got more than one intern, and then present it at the end and do that virtually? And then the last thing, and this has been the most popular one by far, was could they work with folks at the organization to work on business continuity plans for the next time something like this happened, so that, if you weren't totally prepared for it this time around, get more prepared for the next time. And Corning and Caterpillar and a couple of others took us up on that, and which was pretty cool. So all right. Well, last thing I'm going to ask the group, and then we'll start to wrap things up. How are y'all doing just personally handling all of this stuff? I mean, do you feel overwhelmed, underwhelmed, whelmed?
Hey, Jay, it's Sue. Can I just ask one question back onto that project type work? Is anybody working with their employers right now to do project work? I know that's been the new buzz type thing to do. I've just been tasked with doing that and reaching out to our employers. But I also have to ask them for $12,000 donation to help pay those students while they're doing the project. Not super thrilled about it, but right now I pretty much do whatever they ask me to do because they keep paying me, and I'm good with that. But is anybody else doing project work where they're actually asking the company? So just so we're going to run it as more like a per diem. So there's no paperwork for them to do, nothing for the employer to do, but help feed the work. And then the faculty are going to work with the cohorts. But again, I have to ask for up to $12,000 for projects.
No. Duke is real fancy, Sue.
I don't know if it's called fancy.
So you know what we did with the small business council and things around here, but nothing that elaborate. No, we did set up a special resume book for students that would want to do short-term project work for maybe small businesses and entrepreneurs in the area. And instead of them having to go through the whole hoops of posting and everything, we built a form that they filled out. They send it to me and Patrick. We look at it and say, yeah, that looks legit. And then we send it to people in that resume book and say, if you want to do it, here's how to apply.
So, hey, this is Lori at Wake. While I said we're not doing anything that fancy, as far as like asking for money, we are trying to figure out how to ask our Board of Visitors, Board of Trustees, alumni who have raised their hand and said they want to help, how how can they help us? Is it a project? If it's not a job or an internship, could it be a project? So Jay, I don't know if you'd be willing to share your form, but we are right in the beginning stages of trying to figure out, what that might look like and how to rein them in so that it is valuable work. It is not a rabbit hole. It is not something that needs to be something personally done.
Sure, I will send y'all what we sent out as a part of that, and feel free to look at it as you wish. So let me grab that.
Would be great.
I'll send it y'all's way here in just a minute. So
okay, thank you.
Sure.
And Sue, I would love to hear how this goes for you. Have you done any of them yet?
Sorry, I had to figure out how to change that microphone back. So this just came up. Again, you guys know, most of you know, I work with just master's engineering students, and they have internships built into their program. And while some of those are getting waived, they can't waive them all. So this just came up, and we're trying, We're trying to do 40 of these with 3 to 4 students, because please keep in mind, again, our students are not necessarily from the United States of America, and they're trying to stay, and we're trying to help them make money and get their internship project work done. So I will keep you all posted. We're waiting right now for the marketing material to be made. We are working on sending information out to the employers that I've worked with recently that have said they might be interested in doing some things like that. But I don't know if you all are, and remember, I'm very specific, but my phone calls have dropped down to very few with employers. It's getting harder and harder to get to talk to them. So once I get the marketing material, my job is going to reach out to the people that I've talked to most recently. And then the faculty are also reaching out to their folks and asking. So Lori, I'll definitely keep you posted on how that goes.
Yeah, I will say, Sue, a lot of the employers that I have had conversations with, I mean, I'm trying to do at least 2 to 3 Zooms a week just to stay in touch. But I think a lot of them have been redeployed to other areas of their company because it's keeping their jobs, but they might be doing like business development or sales now, since recruiting isn't at the forefront of all of their basic needs. And that's a lot. Like, I know I'm having a conversation with Live Oak Bank that was supposed to happen last week, and she was like, we're processing loans because they're working on the other side of it. So that has definitely, I have noticed that same trend as well.
Well, I usually, at the beginning of this, the first 4 or 5 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, I would have 10 calls a week. And they may be quick, but now last week I had 2.
Yeah.
So it's stuff, and people are still connecting with me. And I don't know if you all are finding this, but I'm having no trouble at companies that are hiring, connecting with me and being open as long as they don't have to talk.
Jay, you asked a question about how we were managing. If anybody needs any, I'm now selling chickweed. I have pulled more chickweed out of my flowers than I ever thought possible. So I'm selling chickweed on the side. If anybody would like some, I can get it to you tomorrow.
I'll be honest, I didn't know what that was. And I was like, Dana, this is being recorded. just so we're clear. It's like, Dana.
It is a wild weed that grows when it's wet, rainy weather.
Oh, well, then I'm sure I have that then. I just wouldn't know what it would look like or it was called.
I decided if I wanted my irises to bloom, I had to pull the chickweed out so I could see them.
I can report that honeybees are doing just fine in spite of coronavirus.
Yeah, agreed.
So our hives are doing pretty good the last we looked. So
I have also taken into account, having been home so much, that I'm not sure the size of the brain on a Carpenter bee, but if I had $1 for every time one flew into the glass of my back door, I might be a millionaire in quarantine. It's all day long. All I hear these thumping sounds, and the Carpenter bees flying into the sliding glass door. And I'm like, I might be the stupidest animal that is alive. I mean, it's a constant. So they're doing fine too, Jeff. Yeah. Just so you know.
Yep. We had a few.
It's Lori again, and I stumbled upon an article that just about made my heart stop. But it relates back to what we were kind of talking about with the option B in the fall for the virtual. And it's really talking about, until there's a vaccine, we are not going to be able to put 300 people in a room shaking hands, whatever, spitting all over each other, whatever it happens to be. So, I mean, I think for realistically, the virtual fair could potentially be, maybe it's something that we do in concert with an in-person, to where you can have or limit students in the thing. I just think when they're talking about the economy coming back and releasing people into relaxing these guidelines, I just can't see how they're going to let us put all these kids in one place for a fair in September.
Hey, Lori, the other thing that I noticed last night, or I saw in an article, is Boston University, because I'm still in Maine. Boston University is already looking at putting all their fall classes online. It's not a definite, but they're already talking about it and already putting it out there.
I mean, because, a college campus is a petri dish anyway.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking the same thing, Lori. Like, I mean, if you don't have, thinking about 300 people in a room, like, what is a dorm?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
That's pretty much, if they keep social distancing at low numbers, like, how do you put students into a dormitory?
Right. And I think what this article is really talking about is it will go up and go down and go up and go down every time they relax the social distancing and people travel. I mean, there's going to be all this around travel that businesses are going to have to do to get back to normal, and that's just going to transfer back and forth. So I really think that we really need to come up with some really good strategy around the virtual. And I hope somebody can do some research on some of those systems and figure out, which one's going to work the best for us.
Well, I can say that I know that much like Roderick was mentioned earlier, the SEC, ACC schools have partnered together for years to do that virtual fair in the spring. The Conference USA and Sunbelt schools are doing something like that in May, and Patrick's involved with that in our office. So I don't have more details other than that, but as soon as I have them, I'll glad to share what we're going to do and what that's going to look like. But I don't see any reason why. Well, and now somebody else tell me this, because I don't know NCACE leadership politics and things like that very well, but what would keep this group from putting together something like that for all of us as well, as an additional event on top of what we're each trying to do if we need to?
Well, we've kind of talked about that, just in passing, hoping that it wouldn't come to that. But I really think the longer we go on in this, the more possible that might be. And I loved the idea. I don't know what company he was talking about, the one that said where you got the services for a year, because I think there's so many kids that are going to be still a little bit reluctant to participate in a virtual fair. I know Wake students think they really want that individualized experience and, I'm not valuable if you're not going to come to campus kind of thing, but that really might be the way we have to go, and they'll be more comfortable with it now that they've done their online classes. But I don't like the idea of getting locked into one thing for one $3,000 thing, and then if it's a bust, it's a bust. But I love the idea of having maybe many things, many M-I-N-I, as in spaced out over time, because different industries are going to come back online at different times, and so that would actually give us a little bit more flexibility. So,
Lori, that's an excellent point, and I've communicated internally to our group that we need, if we go to the virtual fair route, we need to think about breaking the fair into industry cluster and do like 4 small ones instead of 1 or 2 big ones. 1, just to manage it on our end, but 2, as we deal with that employer flux coming back online. So
yeah, because as they've dropped off, step down, dropped off, step down, I think it'll come back up that way as well. Because, the cruise line's not coming back. Hotels are going to come back slow, but manufacturing will stay strong. Transportation, supply chain, data analytics, as companies figure out what the heck to do next. So I think that might be a good kind of way to think about it. So
that's an excellent point. Well, y'all, we need to wrap up things here because I've got another thing to get on at 3 as well, and I know y'all have stuff to do. Any final thoughts, questions, things we want to throw to the group? And last thing, do we want to do another one of these in a week or 2 weeks? What's your preference?
I kind of like the 2 weeks, every 2 weeks, because we can sort of glean information, from what's happening in our own little worlds. And 2 weeks out, we'll put it probably closer to the end of the semester for all of us. And, we can sort of see where we are.
I agree. I think 2 weeks is good. And I do like getting tidbits from everybody. I always learn something.
Oh yeah.
Same.
We had more people on this one than we did the last one. Do we want to shoot for just this time again in 2 weeks rather than do another doodle poll, or should I put another one out and let everybody sign up and do all of that again? I mean, I'm glad to do it. We had, 15, 16 people here this time. So
I would do it the same time, man.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Yeah, just schedule it.
All right. We'll test Zoom. Say again?
Let's try Zoom.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
This next time we'll try Zoom. So, yeah, we'll do that. So,
all right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, that's great. Well, gang, thank y'all for everything and stay strong. Let me know if I can be of help at all. Thanks to everybody who chatted and put out great resources. I will get the recording of this up probably later this afternoon, evening, and I'll send you out a note that it's up again and y'all can go check it out. So,
Jade, Beth made a good point on the chat. If you don't have a Zoom account, it will boot you. If you're using it for free, it will boot you out after 40 minutes. But we have accounts, and I'm assuming I think Beth does too. So
Yeah, I have one.
If you need someone else to share it, yeah.
very cool. Yeah, I think we have one that I can use, but if not, I will definitely reach out to you, Casey. That'll be great. So, perfect. All right. Well, thank y'all again. Y'all be safe.
Bye,
Take care.
guys.
Bye.
Thank you, Jade.
Thank
Good
you.
talk to everybody.
Thanks.
I'll call you now.
Bye.